This might sound a bit too much, but when I say veterans are better off than everyone else, I genuinely mean it. So when it comes to VA disability compensation, the VA home loan, education benefits, and all the other benefits, really put veterans in this position to pretty much do whatever they want, in my opinion. Now, today we have David Piatek with us, who is the subject matter expert when it comes to VA home loans. David, go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's up, Clay? Welcome. Thanks for having me back. I don't say welcome back, but I'm the guest on here. So if you guys haven't checked out the channel VA Housing Education, check it out. It's not just VA home loan stuff. It's really financial education for the veteran community specifically, right? So we face different challenges than, let's say, our civilian counterparts, and transitioning is also very different, right, for everybody. So that's what we aim to provide as much information for being on service, transitioning, being out, and for family members, because as we know, Clay, at least in my case, like even my wife doesn't really know like what I do in the military or the benefits that exist with it, right? So this is also for the spouses that are out there and people even thinking about joining the military. What lies in the benefits of serving your country?
Now, David, I assume I'm taking a very specific approach here,
Okay.
kind of differentiating, veterans from non-veterans or everyone else. I assume you do home loans for non-veterans as well, but you definitely, your expertise is in the VA home loan for sure.
Right.
Do you see any difference in access to home ownership and living a life that isn't stuck in the rat race of paycheck to paycheck between veterans and Gen Pop of American population?
Right. So to clarify, yeah, so I do lending across the country. Education is across the country to basically any loan product. I just personally do focus in on the veteran community because I'm also in the service, right? So it's a company, it's folks that I resonate with that just makes it much easier to work with. So when it comes to, let's say, people's financial pictures, Clay, the thing is that no matter if you have a VA loan or like, let's say you're a veteran or non-veteran, there's people out there that live paycheck to paycheck. And there's people out there that are in the middle class that, may have a couple months of savings. And then you have people that are, have in the one percenters that are both veterans and civilians. But it really comes down to, leveraging a loan product that makes it so different, right? Veterans have access to be able to purchase properties sooner for sure than any other demographic that's out there. And the primary reason behind that is because you could do 100% financing, but you still need money for closing costs. Now, depending on where you're buying, sometimes you can get a credit for those, or you might be able to access down payment assistance programs to be able to get or catapult you to home ownership sooner than later. But something that, we've touched on a couple of times is that you really want to have some savings when you're going into home ownership. And for some veterans, right, they save up money because they know that, hey, if the air conditioner goes out or they need to make some kind of repairs to the home, they have that money set aside, and then they're not using that for a down payment. Well, that's a smart move to do versus like, hey, I got $500 in the bank account. I want to buy a $300,000 property. I'm getting a seller credit to cover all my costs, but I have no money. Right? Like and then something goes wrong. Now, all of a sudden, you're faced with like, am I making my car payment, my mortgage payment, or do I need to make the repairs to the property? Because as you know, I mean, being both of us homeowners, it's like, if you don't take care of something soon and just wait, it becomes a bigger and more expensive problem. And so for some veterans, and I get calls like this as well, is that we're like, hey, I need $25,000 to fix my roof, but I don't have a good credit and I don't have much income. What are my options? You don't want to put yourself in a bad position.
Yeah, what blows my mind is veterans. I'm going to use a specific word choice here for a reason. Okay.
Okay.
Veterans have this privilege of VA compensation, and we can do one or two things with that. And I'm narrowing it down to you have one of two options, no more, no less. You can either use your compensation to pay down debt, build a savings account, and kind of get out of that lower middle class into upper middle, maybe even that 1%er, right? Maybe, especially years to come. Or you can use that compensation and say, ooh, I now I qualified for a $200,000 home, but now I get VA compensation. I qualify for a $500,000 home. Once you make that decision, you are right back where you started in the rat race of paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
And so I really, man, if of all the education that I do on my channel, all the education that you do on your channel with disability, home loans, financial stuff, everything combined, if there's one thing I want the entire veteran community to know, it's those two options. You either use your VA compensation to better your life, or you use your VA compensation to live paycheck to paycheck. And that paycheck to paycheck life does not discriminate. Someone who makes 20 grand living paycheck to paycheck is the same stress than someone who makes 100 grand living paycheck to paycheck. It's the same.
Basically, I mean, I've helped people that make 15 grand, like if anyone from making 1,500, 2,000 a month to people making 60 grand a month. Like there's people that live paycheck to paycheck in both worlds. So it doesn't really make a difference.
$60,000 a month. Oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah.
What are they doing? They're selling drugs?
No, I mean, there's there's a lot of different people that are business owners or maybe executives and stuff like this. Yeah, they definitely there's opportunities to make that kind of money out there. But the thing is that like that's the whole thing is if you receive a disability compensation and you're not at 100% PNT also, it's not guaranteed. Like that income could shift and all of a sudden you're out of that money. And the same thing goes for having a job, right? When you think of like your employment situation, I would hope that you think positive, like, hey, I do a good job, I'm going to stay here. But remember, you're at the mercy of a company. If they don't need you, then it's sayonara, right? Like they do layoffs. Now you're without a job. And if you don't have money set aside and you can't transition fast enough, well, then you're putting yourself in a harmful position to remember too, it's a lifetime to build credit, and it would just take one event to basically derail that. And now eventually you can recover from it, but just know these hiccups have a big impact on your financial situation. And remember, when you need money or when you don't need money, people want to give it to you. And when you need it, they don't want to. So that's why having money set aside. If you have a home, get a home equity line of credit. That's just like general advice. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you based on experience and talking to thousands of people and, reaching hundreds of thousands of veterans, like that is just a good way to position yourself.
I had this financial dude. He was a Navy EOD guy in the soft environment. I totally forgot his name. If he watches this, I'm sorry, man. But he had a side hustle that was his target audience specifically were physicians, like medical doctors who are making a lot of money, but they're buying Porsches, they're buying expensive houses. They have school debt, and that's an understatement. And so now they have this extra bill of debt on top of this lavish lifestyle. And it goes to show that you can make 200, 250, 300 grand a year and still be stuck in the rat race.
100%.
And in my opinion, VA compensation is a veteran's way to break free of that. Okay. If you can use your compensation, this assumes you're working full-time as well. If you're working full-time and you can use your compensation to pay off debt, once you're debt-free, hey, do whatever you want. Stay out of debt, do whatever you want, right? If you want to use your VA home loan, because we know it's 100% financing, right? And a question for you, David, have you ever had people put money down on a VA home loan, although they don't have to?
All the time.
Yeah. And so that's an option.
Yeah. So just like, because I think I'll ask people like, hey, do you want to put a down payment? Some people are like, why would I do that? And I'm like, well, I mean, that's just because you don't have to doesn't mean, you shouldn't. And the reason, again, is that if you want to stay at a certain monthly payment, and you have the means to put money down, well, it makes sense, because if you don't put money down, you're paying interest on that money. And if you don't have a VA fund, if you have to pay the VA funding fee, it gets tagged onto the balance. So in theory, you could buy if you don't have VA disability compensation and you're buying at 100%, you're buying a house upside down in equity. Because if it's 300,000, and then you have to add on a $9,000 VA funding fee, now you're buying at 309. That also extends out how far you have to own a home for you to sell it to make a profit.
Yeah, it goes back to this. Veterans got two options, right?
Yeah.
You either use your benefits to help you out, or you use your benefits to be an average Joe. We don't like average Joes, right?
Well, the thing, Clay, too, is that like some veterans, we'll talk to that make VA disability, SSDI, they have like another like government subsidy, and also they'll get what's like a HUD-VASH voucher. So like they literally make like $8-9 grand a month, and they have barely nothing to pay for, but no money in the bank.
They're busy spending it out bingo,
stay home,
Waffle House, pull tabs, whatever it is people are buying. Yeah,
whatever. Stay home, play some video games, not too much. Get outside a little bit. But yeah, it's just you really need to take control of that. And then on the other side too, Clay, is that we have people that reach out. They'll say, I'm tired of just blowing my money. And I want to put together a plan to figure out where I could save money and set myself up financially. And we've also had a lot of those folks reaching out where they're like, hey, I don't want to look at my credit, but I need to. Like, they know that it's not good. Okay. They just know, like, hey, I didn't pay bills. Like, I was out messing around. I need to focus to get to where I need to be. And this is the thing, Clay, is that nothing is impossible. It's just going to be painful. That's it. And that's you realize that if you did something, it falls on you. You take responsibility. But then once you take responsibility, you now need to turn it around. So a couple things with that. One, remember, negative things on your credit report fall off after 7 years, right? So within a 7-year period, you can clear up everything, literally. The challenge is if you relapse, right? You want to just come up with a plan. A budget lets you have good credit, and good credit gives you access to cheaper money. So it starts with the budget, and I'm going to be doing a lot more classes on budgeting on the channel and doing some live events around that. Just kind of walking people through what are some of the options that exist and how you can set yourself up for success.
Absolutely. Veterans, if you're using your VA compensation to DoorDash,
oh man,
every day and using your Uber eating Starbucks to your home, which I am guilty. I have done that a couple times.
I have never. I looked at how expensive it was.
It's beautiful. Anyways, it is expensive, but our behaviors matter. All right. So David, last words. How can veterans reach out to you?
Yeah, if you guys want to, there's a description down below in the video. You guys can reach out, check out the channel. And you don't always have to reach out right away. Just like check out the videos, because a lot of people will be like, hey, and make sure you watch the whole videos. Don't just watch a part of it and then be like, I got questions. That in the video, it all is answered in there. You know what I'm saying? Like, do some research, because that way when a lot of times it's just like anything that you do in the military or in life. You want to at least have a baseline of information, so then the right questions to ask. Luckily, like on our end, people will say, hey, this is what I want to do. And then I'm like, wait a second, let's kind of step back and let's ask more questions, because you may not have thought of pros, cons, neutral. Hey, this is how you're going to work. And then we'll have a game plan that you can execute. If not today, sometime in the next year or two.
Boom, there it is.